Hello class, it's Mr. Woodward. Today we are going to be working on the printer problem again, but instead of wiring it using hardware or using 74 series chips, we are going to produce the exact same series of inputs and outputs, but we're going to use software. We're going to use Arduino in order to do it. So I'll let you take a look at my hardware setup. You see I have 3 buttons. I have my 3 LEDs. They're all running to ground. Um, but I'd like you to pay special attention. Here, button A is running to pin 2 on my Arduino. Button B is running to pin 3. Button C is running to pin 5. And then you can see my blue LED runs to 9. My orange LED runs to 11. And my green LED runs from 13. And then they all run to ground from here. So, how do we do this? Well, we're going to open up our code button here. You can see it brings up this big thing, and I like to have it set to blocks and text. That way we can see our code blocks, but we can also see the actual code that's being produced. So we have some built-in code here, and what we're going to do is grab it and toss it in the trash because we don't need that today. So our first thing we're going to do is create our variables. Now I am going to call my variables button A, button B, and, shockingly, button C. You can call them whatever you want. You can just call them A, B, and C if you want to, but I think this will help me remember what I'm doing. So the first thing that I want to do is tell the program or the sketch what these variables are going to do. So I'm going to stack these blocks together, and I'm going to say I want button A to read a digital pin. And remember, I can minimize this. Button A is running to pin 2. So I'm going to set button A to read digital pin 2. I'll then set button B to read digital pin 3. And I will set button C to read digital pin 5. And I want to take a minute, just sit right there, and notice what happened in our code. Up here we have that int, which stands for integer. And that's essentially where you define your variables. So we have our 3 variables, initially set at 0. And then in here in the setup part of our sketch, we've now declared that pin 2, pin 3, and pin 5 are all inputs. And then down here in our loop, we've said that button A's job is to read digital pin 2, button B's job is to read digital pin 3, button C's job is to read digital pin 5. So let's build our first alarm. So our first alarm is, you guys can see over here, B or C. So what we're going to need is we need an if-else statement. And what we want to say if button B or button C is pressed. So the way that you do that is over here in our math section, we want to say if, instead of 1, we want to say button B. So I'm going to come back to my variables here. I'm going to grab button B. If button B is equal to, and I don't want it to be equal to 1, I want it to be equal to high. And then I'm going to do the same thing with button C. And then in the next video, we'll figure out how to connect them together.